For 15 years, I was not a woman. I was a piece of office furniture. I wore the same navy blue uniform, high collar, long sleeves, the same 3 washed and pressed and put on again. I sat at the same desk and typed the same letters until my fingers knew the keys better than my own name. I wake at 6, I wash my face in cold water, I pin my hair, I eat my toast, I walk the same streets, to the same office, to the same desk, to the same clock. Punch in, punch out. Punch in, punch out. 15 years. Today, Mr. Hardwell called me into his office. He didn't close the door. He didn't need to. No one was listening. He said the firm was making changes. He said my position was being eliminated. He said, "You're 35, Clara. It's time." Time for what? I didn't ask. I couldn't. I sat there in my navy blue uniform, my hands folded in my lap, the same hands that had typed 10,000 letters for him, and I felt nothing. No, that's a lie. I felt everything. He handed me an envelope, severance, 3 months' pay. He said, "We appreciate your service." My service, like I was a piece of furniture he was done using. I stood up, I walked out, I didn't cry. My name is Clara Harlow. I am 35 years old. I have never been married. I have no children. I have no family, except a brother I have not seen in 12 years, who went to America and never wrote back. I live in a single room in a boarding house on Grace Church Street. The room is small. The window faces a brick wall. The bed is narrow and hard. I have a wardrobe with 3 identical navy blue dresses, a washstand with a chipped basin, a desk where I eat my meals. This is my life. It was my life. Every morning, the clock on the church across the street wakes me at 6. I lie still for a moment, listening to it chime. I do not pray. I stopped praying years ago. I simply wait for the sound to fade, and then I rise. The water in the basin is cold. It is always cold. I wash my face. I do not look in the mirror. I know what I will see. A woman who has been tired for 15 years. A woman whose hair has started to gray. A woman whose eyes have forgotten how to shine. I dress, navy blue, high collar, long sleeves. The uniform that says, I am here to work. I am not here to be seen. I pin my hair, tight. No strands loose. No room for softness. I eat toast in the dark kitchen of the boarding house. The other lodgers do not speak to me. They have not spoken to me in years. I am the ghost of Grace Church Street, a woman who passes through rooms without leaving a trace. At 7, I put on my coat. At 10 past, I leave the house. At 25 past, I reach the office. The clock on the wall of Hardwell & Sons shipping is always fast by 3 minutes. I know this. I have known it for 15 years. I still punch in at exactly 8 because Mr. Hardwell expects punctuality, even when his clock lies. My desk is in the corner, the smallest desk, the one nearest the window where the draft comes through in winter. I type letters, I file ledgers, I fetch tea, I answer the door. I do what I am told. No one says good morning to me. No one asks how I am. No one knows my first name. I am Miss Harlow, the secretary, the spinster, the woman in the navy blue dress who has been here forever and will be here forever. Or so they thought. The summons came at 11 o'clock. Mrs. Beale, the office manager, appeared at my desk. "Mr. Hardwell wants to see you." Her voice was flat. She did not look at me. I stood. I smoothed my skirt. I walked to the door of the inner office. I knocked. "Come in." He was sitting behind his desk, the same chair, the same brass lamp. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe I had stopped looking. He did not ask me to sit. I sat anyway. "Miss Harlow, we've had to make some difficult decisions." I waited. "The firm is restructuring. Your position, we've concluded that it's no longer necessary." No longer necessary? 15 years of typing his letters, filing his ledgers, fetching his tea, arriving on time through snow and rain when the influenza kept half the city in bed? No longer necessary? The shipping business is changing. We need younger people, people who understand the new machines. Younger. I was 35. I was not old, but I was old to him, old enough to discard, old enough to replace with someone cheaper, someone fresher, someone who had spent 15 years watching the life drain out of her eyes. Mr. Hardwell's nephew is joining the firm. He'll be taking over your duties. I did not ask what duties. I knew what duties. Typing, filing, fetching, being invisible. He slid an envelope across the desk. 3 months severance, a letter of recommendation. We appreciate your service, Miss Harlow. I took the envelope. I stood up. I walked to the door. I did not cry. I have not cried in 15 years. I do not remember leaving the office. I remember the street, the gray sky, the sound of hooves on cobblestones, the women with their baskets, the men with their briefcases, the children running errands for mothers who could not afford to let them play. I walked. I did not know where I was going. My feet knew the way home. My heart did not. The envelope was in my hand. 3 months' pay. 15 years of my life reduced to paper and ink. I thought about the mornings, the cold water, the toast, the clock, the navy blue dress. I thought about the letters I had typed, thousands of them, orders, invoices, complaints, none of them signed with my name, none of them mattering. I thought about the day I started. I was 20 years old. I had just lost my mother. I had no one. The job was a miracle, a desk, a typewriter, a future. I had not known then that the future would be the same day repeated 10,000 times. I reached my room. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed. I did not cry. I stared at the brick wall outside my window, the same bricks, the same cracks, the same gray light. And I thought, what now?
If this story of finding yourself and being seen touched your heart, please hit subscribe. I'm working toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one means the world to me. And I'd love to know, have you ever felt invisible, like Clara? What helped you feel seen again? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.
Tonight, I have nowhere to go tomorrow, and for the first time, I am afraid. I woke at 6. The clock chimed. I did not move. For 15 years, I had risen at this hour and dressed in navy blue and walked to the same office. Today, there was no office, no desk, no clock to punch. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was small. The window faced a brick wall. The bed was narrow and hard. It had been my life. It was still my life, but the shape of it had crumbled. I thought about Mr. Hardwell's face, the way he had not looked at me, the way he had said, "We appreciate your service," like he was reading from a script. I thought about the nephew, a boy probably, 20 years old, fresh from school. He would sit at my desk and type my letters and be called efficient and promising. I thought about my hands, the same hands that had typed 10,000 letters. They were not old, they were not useless, but they had been discarded anyway. I sat up. The cold air hit my shoulders. I shivered. I decided, for no reason I could name, to take a bath. The boarding house had a bathroom. It was down the hall, shared by all the lodgers. I had used it perhaps 3 times in 15 years. A bath took time. Time was something I had never had. Today, I had nothing but time. I filled the tub. The water was not hot, the boiler was old, but it was warm enough. I undressed, I stepped in, and I sat there, watching the steam rise, and I let myself feel the water on my skin. It had been so long since I had felt anything. I washed my hair, I scrubbed my arms, I stayed until the water grew cold. Then I dried myself and returned to my room. I opened my wardrobe. 3 navy blue dresses hung in a row, identical, the uniform of a woman who had stopped choosing. But there was another dress at the back, a dress I had bought years ago for a wedding I had not attended. It was the color of sage, soft green, with buttons down the front and sleeves that gathered at the wrist. I had never worn it. I put it on. The fabric was strange against my skin, softer than the wool of my uniforms. It felt like wearing someone else's life. I pinned my hair, looser than usual. A few strands fell against my cheeks. I left them. I looked in the mirror. A woman looked back, not the ghost I had seen every morning. Someone older, yes, someone tired, but someone whose eyes still held a question. What now? I did not know. I put on my coat and I walked out the door.
The morning was gray. The streets were wet from rain. I walked without purpose, my feet carrying me toward the one place I had not gone in years, the park. It was small, tucked between the old buildings, with a few benches and a pond and trees that had been there since before I was born. I had come here once when I first arrived in London. I had sat on a bench and watched the water and thought about the future. I had not been back since. I found an empty bench. I sat down. I opened the newspaper I had bought from a boy on the corner. The pages were thin, the ink smudged. I scanned the headlines: trade disputes, a royal visit, advertisements for soap and corsets and patent medicines. Then I saw it. Secretary wanted, Pertson Manor, Kent. Experienced clerk required for estate ledgers and correspondence. Room and board provided. Apply in person. Pertson Manor. I had heard the name. An old family, a large estate. A duke, perhaps, though I was not certain. I read the advertisement again. Room and board provided. That meant I would not have to pay for my boarding house. That meant I could save the severance money. I folded the newspaper. I stood up. I did not know if I would get the position. I did not know if I even wanted it. But it was something. And for the first time in 15 years, I had somewhere to go. The train from London to Kent took 2 hours. I watched the city dissolve into countryside. Brick and smoke gave way to fields and hedgerows and villages I had never seen. The sky grew wider. The air grew cleaner. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass and felt something loosen in my chest. Pertson Manor was not what I expected. I had imagined a grand house like the ones in novels, marble floors, chandeliers, servants in livery. It was grand, yes, but it was also worn. The stone walls were streaked with damp. The windows were tall, but the glass was old, warped in their frames. The gardens were overgrown, roses climbing wild over the hedges. A house that had been beautiful once, a house that had been neglected, a house that needed someone to care for it. I walked up the gravel drive. My shoes were not meant for gravel. I did not care. The front door was answered by a housekeeper. "Mrs. Price," she said. She was thin and gray and looked at me with the particular expression of someone who had seen too many hopeful faces. "The position is for a secretary," she said. "His Grace does not interview. I will show you the study. If you can make sense of it, the job is yours." She led me down a long corridor. The walls were lined with portraits, men in dark coats, women in pale gowns, all of them watching me with painted eyes. Then she opened a door. The study was chaos. Papers covered every surface, ledgers stacked on the floor, letters spilling from drawers. The desk was buried under mountains of correspondence, some of it yellowed, some of it clearly months old. I stood in the doorway and felt something I had not expected: excitement. I started the next day. Mrs. Price showed me to a small room on the second floor, a bed, a wardrobe, a window that faced the gardens. It was larger than my room in London and quieter and smelled of lavender. I unpacked my 3 navy blue dresses, I hung them in the wardrobe, then I took off my coat and walked to the study. I did not know where to begin. I started with the ledgers. They were in no order, years mixed together, accounts for crops, for livestock, for repairs, for staff wages. I sorted them by date. I stacked them in piles. I began to see the shape of the estate's finances. The Duke was not poor, but he was not rich either. The ledgers showed a careful balancing, a life lived within its means. There were debts, but they were old. There was income, but it was modest.
I worked through the morning, through the afternoon. I did not eat lunch. I did not notice the light changing. At some point, I heard footsteps behind me. "Who are you?" I turned. He was standing in the doorway, tall, lean. His dark hair was streaked with gray. His face was lined in a way that spoke of grief, not age. He wore a simple coat, no cravat, his collar open. His eyes were brown, the color of the earth after rain. I stood. I smoothed my skirt. "Miss Clara Harlow," I said, "the new secretary." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at the room. I had been there for 8 hours. I had sorted the ledgers. I had cleared the desk. I had opened the curtains and let in the light. "You did this?" he asked. "Yes." He walked to the desk, ran his fingers over the neat stacks of papers, opened a ledger, closed it. Why? Because it needed to be done. He looked at me again. His brown eyes were unreadable. "Most people don't last a day." "I am not most people." A pause. "Welcome to Pertson Manor, Miss Harlow." His name was Alexander Pertson. He was the 8th Duke of Pertson. He was 42 years old. He had been married once. His wife had died 7 years ago. There were no children. I learned these things slowly, in pieces, from Mrs. Price, from the ledgers, from the letters I typed and filed. He did not tell me himself. He was not unkind. He was simply absent. He ate his meals alone. He walked the gardens at dusk. He spent hours in the library, reading, not speaking. I worked in the study. He passed through sometimes. He would pause at the door, watch me for a moment, then leave. I did not mind. I had spent 15 years being invisible. I was used to it. But this was different. At Hardwell and Sons, I was invisible because no one cared. Here, I was invisible because he was grieving. I understood grief. I did not push. The weeks passed. I learned the estate, the rhythm of the seasons, the names of the staff, the way the light fell through the tall windows in the afternoon. I wrote letters for him, to tenants, to merchants, to distant relatives he had not seen in years. I signed his name, I sealed the envelopes with wax, I sent them out into the world. He began to leave notes for me, small things. "Miss Harlow, please order more ink. Miss Harlow, write a letter to Lord Thomas." I answered them. I did the work. I did not expect thanks. One afternoon, I was at the desk when he appeared at the door. "You've been here 6 weeks," he said. "Yes." He walked to the window, looked out at the gardens. "My wife used to sit in this room. She kept the accounts before she got sick." I did not speak. "She was good at it, better than me." A pause. "I couldn't bear to look at it after she died, so I let it rot." "You're not letting it rot anymore." He turned. His brown eyes were soft. "No, I'm not."
In London, Sundays were not my own. I would wake at 8, later than usual, but not rested. The week had drained me. The hours at the desk, the typing, the fetching, the being invisible. I would lie in bed listening to the church bells, and I would feel the weight of the week pressing down on my chest. I had no energy for exploration, no time for walks in the park. The park was for people who had room in their lives for beauty. I had room for nothing but sleep and work. Sundays meant catching up on the sleep I had missed, and when I woke, there was always more work. Ledgers that needed copying, letters that needed addressing. Mr. Hardwell's correspondence did not rest on the Sabbath. I would sit at my small desk in my small room, the same navy blue dress still on, and I would type until my fingers ached. The church bells would chime the hours. I would not look up. That was my Sunday, for 15 years. At Pertson Manor, Sundays were different. My first Sunday, I woke at 7. The birds were loud outside my window. The sun was gold through the curtains. I lay in bed and waited for the familiar weight to settle on my chest. It did not come. There was no work to take home, no ledgers waiting, no letters demanding answers. The study was in order. The ledgers were sorted. The correspondence was filed. I had done my work. I had done it well. And now, for the first time in 15 years, I had nothing to do.
I did not know what to do with myself. I dressed, not in navy blue, in the sage green dress, the one I had worn to my interview. I pinned my hair loosely. I left my room. The house was quiet. Mrs. Price was at church. The Duke was in the library reading. I did not disturb him. I walked out the back door and into the garden. The morning was gold. The dew was still on the grass. The roses were blooming, their petals soft and heavy with moisture. I walked past the hedges, past the bench by the pond, past the stone wall at the edge of the property. There was a gate. I had not noticed it before. Old iron, half hidden by ivy. I pushed it open. The path beyond was narrow, overgrown. Grass brushed against my skirts. Wildflowers grew in clusters, blue and white and yellow, small and unassuming. I walked. I did not know where I was going. I did not care. The path led me through a meadow. The grass was tall, golden in the morning light. A stream ran along the edge, the water clear and quick. I stopped to watch it, to listen to it. The meadow gave way to a small wood. The trees were old, their branches heavy with leaves. The light filtered through in patches, warm on my face. I stood still and let the silence settle around me. No clock, no typewriter, no Mr. Hardwell's voice in my head. Just me and the trees and the quiet. I sat down on a fallen log. Sitting there, on that log, in that wood, with the sun on my face and the sound of the stream in my ears, I felt something stir. Anger, not at him, at myself, for staying so long, for shrinking so small, for believing that I did not deserve more. I sat there until the sun moved overhead, until the light shifted from gold to white. Then I stood. I brushed off my skirt, and I walked back through the meadow, through the gate, through the garden. I did not know what the future held, but for the first time in 15 years, I was not afraid of it. It happened 3 months after I arrived. I was at the desk, writing a letter to a tenant about a leaky roof. I heard his footsteps. I did not look up. He stopped in the doorway. "Miss Harlow?" I looked up. He was holding a book. His finger marked a page. "I need to send a reply to my publisher. They've been asking for the manuscript for 6 months." "I didn't know you wrote." He almost smiled. "No one does." He crossed the room, handed me the book. Our fingers brushed. I felt it, a warmth, a flicker. He did not seem to notice. "Read the marked passage," he said. "Tell me if it's terrible." I read it. It was not terrible. It was beautiful. "It's not terrible," I said. "Then type it, send it, and pray they don't laugh." He left. I sat there for a long moment, my fingers still warm where he had touched them. It meant nothing, I told myself. It did not feel like nothing. His notes became longer, less formal. "Miss Harlow, I have written a new chapter. I would value your opinion, if you have time." I read his chapter that night. It was about a man who had lost everything and did not know how to begin again. I wrote back, "Your protagonist is not lost. He is hiding. There is a difference." The next morning, a new note waited on my desk. "Miss Harlow, you are the first person who has told me the truth in 7 years. I do not know whether to thank you or be terrified." I smiled. I did not write back. One evening, I was locking the study door when I heard his voice. "Miss Harlow." I turned. He was standing at the end of the corridor, his coat collar turned up against the cold. "The gardens are nice at this hour. Would you care to join me?" I should have said no. He was my employee. It was not proper. "Yes," I said. We walked in silence, down the gravel paths, past the overgrown hedges, past the roses that climbed wild over the stone walls. The light was golden. The air smelled of earth and flowers and something else, something I could not name. He stopped at the bench by the pond. "My wife used to sit here. Every evening, she watched the ducks." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." "It doesn't matter how long ago it was." He looked at me. His brown eyes were soft. "No," he said, "it doesn't." We sat on the bench, not close, not far. I lost my mother when I was 20. It was quick, a fever. 1 week she was there, the next she was gone. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Doesn't matter how long ago it was. I looked at him. He was smiling, a small smile, the first I had seen. Touché, I said. He laughed, a real laugh, low and warm. I felt something shift in my chest. After that, we walked every evening. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we sat in silence, but the silence was not empty. It was full of things we could not say. I noticed the way he looked at me when he thought I was not watching. His eyes would linger on my face, on my hands, on the way I pinned my hair. I looked at him too when he was not watching. The way he held his book, the way he ran his hair through his hair when he was frustrated, the way his mouth moved when he read. One evening, he caught me looking. Miss Harlow. Yes? You were staring. I was not. You were. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. I was admiring the sunset, I said. The sunset is behind you. I looked away. He did not. Clara, he said. My name. Just my name. I looked at him. He was close, closer than I had realized. His brown eyes were dark in the fading light. Alexander, I whispered. He reached out. His hand hovered near mine, did not touch. Good night, Clara. He stood. He walked away. I sat on the bench for a long time, my heart beating too fast, my hand tingling where he had almost touched it. He finished his book in November. I typed the final pages myself. Every word, every sentence, every chapter. It was a love story, not a grand one, a quiet one, about two people who had been broken and found each other in the spaces between. I did not know it was about us until the final page. He had been invisible for so long, and then she came with her navy blue dresses and her quiet hands, and she saw him. She saw him. I read it 3 times. Then I walked to the library. He was there, by the fire. Alexander? He looked up. This book, it's about us? It's about me, he said, and about you, and about the way you made me remember how to feel. Alexander, I know. I'm your employer. It's not proper. I've tried to stop. I've tried to ignore it. Have you? No. He stood. He crossed the room. He stopped in front of me. I've tried and failed. Every day, every evening, every time you look at me with those eyes that see everything. I could not breathe. I am 42 years old, he said. I have been a widower for 7 years. I thought I would never feel this again. Alexander, I love you, Clara. He said it simply, without drama, without expectation. I looked at him, at his brown eyes, at the man who had been grieving for 7 years and was finally ready to live again. I love you too, I said. He kissed me, soft, slow, like he was asking permission. I kissed him back. The fire crackled, the clock ticked, the world outside the window was dark and cold, but inside there was warmth. Inside, there was him. Inside, there was me. And for the first time in my life, I was not invisible. I was seen. And at that moment, I was grateful to Mr. Hardwell for firing me. We did not marry immediately. We waited. We were careful. We told no one. But Mrs. Price knew. She had worked in this house for 30 years. She saw the way he looked at me, the way I looked at him. About time, she said one morning, handing me a cup of tea. What? That man has been walking around like a ghost for 7 years. You've put the color back in his cheeks. I did not know what to say. Don't be shy, Miss Harlow. Life is short. Take what happiness you can find. We married in the spring. Not a grand wedding, not a church full of strangers. In the garden, by the pond, with the ducks and the overgrown roses and Mrs. Price crying in the back. I wore a dress that was not navy blue. It was the color of sage, soft green, the one I had bought years ago for a wedding I had not attended. I had kept it all this time, waiting. He stood at the altar, a simple stone arch covered in ivy, and watched me walk toward him. His brown eyes were wet. You're beautiful, he said. You're beautiful. I reached him. He took my hands. Clara Harlow. I have been lost for 7 years. You found me. I wasn't lost. I was invisible. You saw me. He kissed me. The ducks quacked, Mrs. Price blew her nose, the sun came out from behind a cloud, and for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I still work in the study. The ledgers are neat, the letters are typed, the estate runs smoothly. But now, when the clock strikes 6, I close the desk and walk to the garden. He is always there, waiting. We walk together, down the gravel paths, past the roses, past the bench by the pond. He holds my hand. Clara, Alexander, I love you. I smile. I know.